I'm going to explain you a little trick that is going to help you to move your frequency to connect to higher frequencies where you not only are going to handle in a different way pain and suffering, also you're going to attract less pain and suffering. We all are programmed to go to pleasure and avoid pain. I connect only with pleasure and avoiding pain is going to be polarized more into this side, and I'm going to receive more pain. And that's why I'm going to tell you how to change your vibration so you can connect with more elevated frequencies to avoid suffering and to embrace the emotional pain in a peaceful way. Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I want to explain you how to avoid suffering. I'm going to explain you a little trick that is going to help you to move your frequency to connect to higher frequencies where you not only are going to handle in a different way pain and suffering, also you're going to attract less pain and suffering. Suffering and pain are imprinted in human nature. We all are programmed to go to pleasure and avoid pain and suffering. This paradox is very important. It's a paradox in our inner life that we need to equilibrate. From a very early age, they teach us to go to the things that we like, that give us pleasure, and to avoid pain and suffering. But the reality is that this is a paradox because, well, there's two polarized sides of the same thing, of the same energy. And we need to find an equilibrium. We need to find time to have pleasure, and we need to find time to embrace the suffering and the pain that is imprinted in our own process. Because otherwise, we cannot grow. Doing all the time things that give you pleasure, it gives you pleasure, experience too, but it's not going to make you grow. Suffering and pain unlock something within yourself. And that's why I'm going to tell you how to change your vibration so you can connect with more elevated frequencies that are going to help you to avoid suffering and help you to embrace emotional pain in a different way. Everything moves by resonance. Everything is a vibration. Everything is energy, and energy vibrates. As the third law of the Hermetic principles say, everything vibrates. We vibrate, the table vibrates, the computer vibrates, everything vibrates. Everything has an inner vibration. And that vibration that we experience it within ourselves is going to place us, to tune us into a specific frequency for the quantity and the infinity number of frequencies in the universe. And by resonance, we're going to attract and repel everything that is connected, tuned with that frequency. If you are in a lot of suffering and pain, it's because you are vibrating in a low state that puts you in a low frequency that connects you more with pain and suffering. And even if you go to pleasure, avoiding that, you're going to create more of that. Because as I say before, it's a paradox. If here I had pleasure and here I had suffering and pain, everything moves in a pendulum, like the law of the rhythm. And what happened? I connect only with pleasure and avoiding pain is going to be polarized more into this side. First rule, don't avoid suffering and pain with pleasure, with situations that give you pleasure. I'm going to explain to you exactly what to do mentally and emotionally to avoid the mental suffering and to embrace the emotional pain in a peaceful way. Suffering and pain are related with the construct of the mind called ego. The ego is a construct of the mind that it's also an instrument of evolution because it allows us to experience darkness. The ego is not going to die until this body dies. So the only thing that we can do in this plane is disarm its patterns. The difference between suffering and pain is that suffering is mental and pain is emotional pain that could be physical, because every emotional pain that we don't embrace crystallizes in the body and appears with symptoms in the body. Could be symptoms that are temporary or could be symptoms that become an illness. That's why mental suffering is avoidable, but emotional pain cannot be avoidable. Suffering is in a mental way the resistance of the ego to listen what the emotional pain needs to say. The emotional pain is connected with the deep roots of the subconscious mind that tell us that that shadow that has been buried in the deep subconscious mind needs to be do conscience, because at the end of the day shadows doesn't come so we lose on there. They come because they are prepared to be transmuted, to be illuminated. In the past I made a video about reprogram, transcend and transmute, I believe. So if you want to check it, you have it here. So coming back with the ego, what I say that you can avoid suffering, because, well, suffering is mental. So as we know how to reprogram, to transcend, and to transmute, I believe, we can do it. Louis Hay did it with affirmations. The only thing is that affirmations are only for reprogram, but to transcend, I believe, I need to let the doors open to our heart to listen to the emotional pain. We can say that suffering is telling us that we need to listen to something, listen to our souls, but the resistance of the ego that is always in the superiority or the inferiority, because it likes to be polarized, doesn't allow us to listen to our hearts. That is what we call the resistance of the ego. The ego places us in a superiority or an inferiority. When we feel superior, we judge others, we kill others, we doubt about others, and we are worried about others. But when we feel inferior, we judge ourselves, we kill ourselves, we doubt about ourselves, and also we worry a lot about ourselves. We enter in the dominions of the victimism, and we need to find a way to get into the middle, to don't be everything that make us feel superior and everything that make us feel inferior are the domains of the ego. The ego is a test. It doesn't want for you to listen to your emotional pain, because if you listen to the emotional pain, the ego loses the control of the mind. While you are worrying about everything, judging others, judging yourself, etc., the only thing that you are doing is putting your energy outside. You are blaming others, or you are blaming yourself. You are letting the ego to control your energy. So first thing that we need to do is to be aware. What is the taste of my ego? Everybody has both tastes. Everybody has the taste of superiority and the taste of inferiority. In the case of inferiority, it's more simple to see it, because when the ego is polarized in the superiority, it's more complicated to realize within in the mind, to honestly recognize. The ego places us in no man's land, all the time moving the energy between these two sides, but it's in the middle. When I realize that neither the other, neither mine is guilty of that the only thing that I need to do is take responsibility of something that I need to listen, something that emotional pain is trying to tell me through my soul, because the emotional pain needs to be felt. With the mind, with the suffering, we can reprogram, we can do many things, we can understand the way that the ego works, but emotional pain is completely abstract. So we need to feel it, we need to listen to that. And when we recognize that I am not a victim, I just need to hear something that my soul wants to say to me. And I am getting into the resistance because my ego wanted for me to be in no man's land, so that way it can have the control of my mind, is there when I start to feel my pain. The emotional pain that cannot be avoided, only can be transmuted, illuminated. And with that, I say, recognize that pain, embrace that pain, feel that pain, and let it go with love. And that is the way that we organize all that information that has been buried in the deep subconscious mind. And that is the way that we elevate our vibration and we connect with another frequency, a higher frequency, where my consciousness is going to allow me to avoid pain, because I'm going to be aware of the trips of the ego, and I'm going to be able to embrace the pain in a peaceful way. That's why people have anxiety and panic attacks are no less that your soul is screaming so you can hear. At the end of the day, we are not responsible for what others made to us, but we are responsible for what we feel within. The only thing that we can control is ourselves, is our inner vibration. It's the only thing that I can transmute. And transmuting that, I can transmute the other, because I don't give any power to the other. Immediately when I recognize that, I just take responsibility of that in my mind, knowing that if I judge the other, I am entering the dominions of superiority of the ego. And I start to go there. I go to the middle. I start voluntarily to say, okay, I'm not going to feel superior because I don't need to judge that. I want to listen. I want to listen what my soul is saying. And through my body, through my heart, the soul is going to make you feel whatever you need to feel, and take responsibility of that. An example of getting loose in your darkness are alcoholic people. Alcoholic people, what they do, they had a strong emotional pain that create a lot of suffering in their mind regularly, because they judge others or they judge themselves, they get into the victimism or they judge others. And in what they do, they use alcohol to avoid completely to fail. So they get into more suffering later, because as more as I try to go into pleasure to avoid pain, more pain I'm going to have until I listen. And the way is the way that I told you, changing your vibration. But to change your vibration, first you need to reprogram your brain and to know what suffering is coming. And when you know what suffering is coming, you can avoid it at any time, because not every time that you judge other is because there's a strong emotional pain in your soul. No. Sometimes the other may use something because it's a reflection of what they are. And the point is that you don't play in that. I don't judge others because, well, I know that that is going to put me in the dominions of the ego and it's going to take the control of my mind. So what I do is put limits. Place limits to others is essential. And later, I just take care of what I need to take care. Embrace that emotional pain, change my vibration, and connect with higher frequencies that are going to help me more to attract a life with less pain and suffering. And I can embrace the emotional pain in a more peaceful way, because every emotional pain that comes needs to be embraced. Otherwise, it's going to be crystallized, as I say, into the body, and it's going to express symptoms in the body of become an illness. Well, I hope this video helped you a little with your process. Don't forget to subscribe, and also comments are super appreciated. Always constructive comments. Remember that judging others is only avoiding your own suffering. Well, thank you so much and have a wonderful day.